The video began with a soft fade in, a red circle, a quiet crowd, a woman standing alone on stage under a halo of warm light. The title read, Becoming Visible, How I Stopped Shrinking in Love. Dr. Lena Morgan Ethan's breath caught the moment he saw her dot. It had been 4 years since. She walked out of their apartment with nothing but a leather satchel and an envelope addressed to him. 4 years since he opened that envelope and read her final note. Maybe one day you'll understand why I had to leave. At the time, he'd tossed it aside, bitter and bruised. Too proud to acknowledge the sting. Too self-important to wonder if maybe, just maybe, she was right. Now, he couldn't tear his eyes from the screen. Lena looked different, not drastically, but something had shifted in her. She stood straighter, smiled more freely. Her hair was shorter, her eyes clearer. Her voice, when she began to speak, was calm, steady, powerful. I want to talk to you, she began, about disappearing. Ethan leaned forward. She didn't mention names, but she told the story of a woman who loved deeply, gave generously, and gradually erased herself to keep someone else comfortable. A woman who quieted her voice, softened her ambition, and began to believe that her needs were too much. He heard the echo of their past in every line. The time she turned down a fellowship in London because he wasn't ready for long distance. The way she stopped correcting people who called her Mrs. Carter, even though they were never married. The way she smiled tightly at every dinner party where he introduced her as just Lena. He thought she was happy. Or rather, he never thought at all. He'd been too busy chasing meetings, investments, and his next win. Lena was always there, supportive, present, quiet. She didn't demand attention, so he didn't give it. Now she was commanding the stage. She spoke of rediscovery, of leaving a life that looked good on paper that felt hollow, of choosing herself after years of waiting to be chosen by someone else. A single sentence cracked him open. I didn't leave because I stopped loving him. I left because I finally started loving me. The crowd applauded. Ethan felt something inside him fracture. He remembered the last day clearly. She had made coffee, poured his usual cup, and set it on the table with shaking hands. She tried one. Last time to reach him. I don't think you see me anymore, Ethan. He barely looked up. Not this again. I mean it, she said quietly. I've shrunk so small for you that I don't recognize myself. He responded with silence. Then, after a long pause, a sigh, and the words, You're being dramatic. And that was it. Now, watching her stand before hundreds, maybe millions, he saw what she meant. Lena hadn't disappeared. He had just stopped looking. He couldn't sleep that night. He kept replaying the talk in his head, her tone, her strength, the way she smiled as the audience rose to their feet at the end. The applause didn't shake her. She stood grounded, sure of herself, as though she no longer needed anyone to validate her worth. He opened their old photo albums, one still saved in his cloud drive. A birthday in Barcelona, their tiny Christmas tree, her graduation, a shot of her in the kitchen with flour on her nose, laughing at something he couldn't remember. And then one he'd forgotten, her sitting on their balcony, looking out at the skyline, notebook in her lap, pen resting between her fingers. He'd taken the picture without her noticing. He stared at it now, eyes stinging. Back then, he hadn't known what he had. Or maybe he had, but didn't know how to appreciate it. Lena had been the quiet rhythm of his life. Always supportive, always steady. Until one day, she wasn't. He wondered how many times she cried in silence, how many days she told herself to hold on, how many nights she hoped he'd notice. And when she stopped hoping, he thought of reaching out, an email maybe, or a message. Through LinkedIn, she was a professor now, apparently. Her TED Talk had gone viral. She was being interviewed on morning shows, her book climbing charts. But he didn't write Dot, not yet, because deep down, he knew this wasn't about winning her back. It was about finally understanding the damage he had done. Not just to her, but to himself. She had moved on, grown, blossomed, and he was only now beginning the process. She'd started 4 years ago, becoming visible. Weeks passed. He began therapy. For the first time in his life, Ethan sat across from someone and talked about his father, his fear of failure, his need to control, his struggle with vulnerability. And always, Lena, his therapist, asked, "Do you want our forgiveness?" "No," he answered after a long silence. "I want to be the kind of man who deserves it, even if I never get it." So he wrote the apology, not for her to read, but for him to say it out loud. He kept it in a journal. "You loved me like I was enough, even when I didn't believe it. You stood beside me when I barely acknowledged your presence. You shrunk and I let you. You disappeared and I didn't chase you, but now I see you. And I hope the world sees you too, because you were always extraordinary. I just couldn't see past myself to notice." Then he closed the journal and breathed. It wasn't redemption, but it was a start. Months later, he saw her in person, a conference in Chicago. She was a keynote speaker. He sat near the back, trying not to draw attention. She didn't see him. She spoke with grace and power, just as she had in the video. Afterward, he waited outside the hall, unsure of what he was hoping for. Closure? Connection? A moment, she walked by, flanked by her assistant, smiling as she responded to someone's question, and then she glanced his way. For a second, their eyes met. He expected anger or coldness. Maybe even nothing at all, but what he saw surprised him. Recognition, calm, kindness. She gave a small nod. Nothing more, but to Ethan, it was everything. She had moved on. She had forgiven him, if not for his sake, then for her own peace. He watched her walk away, the red badge on her chest swaying gently with each step, and in that moment, for the first time in years, he smiled, not because he'd gotten her back, but because he finally understood why he had lost her and how lucky he was to have known her at all.